issue of the website, because that is a significant one of contention amongst the group. As we said, we did turn over the passwords to Mr. Rahim, and I certainly, with respect to Mr. Still, I don't want I'm not suggesting that, or sorry, I'm not saying Mr. Rahim's name as a way of sort of assigning blame to anyone. That is who that information was turned over to. Whether or not those passwords are still effective is not something within the knowledge of Mr. Al-Bakri's group. He can certainly turn over or resubmit those passwords again. Our office can send them to Mr. MacArthur's office. Whether they will work, we don't know, because they ceased to be in Mr. Al-Bakri's effective knowledge and possession when he turned them over on February 15th. Obviously, time has passed since then, and it may be that those passwords have been changed, and that's something that Mr. Al-Bakri's group does not have control over at this point in time. So we can send passwords over, but I don't know that that will necessarily effectively solve the problem if they've been changed since February 15th when they were first sent.
The other issue, the issue of the magazine. During the 6 months in which we managed the affairs of the MIA, we did not exert any control or assert any authority over the magazine committee. The magazine committee, as I understand it, during the first part of Dr. Warraich's term, split off and established themselves as an independent entity. That was the reality that what existed when we came into management of the MIA. That was the reality when we left the MIA. That's not something that we are able to control or influence.
What about blueprints?
Blueprints, again, the issue keeps coming up that there are blueprints and documents with ex-trustees. When we came into the MIA, the board of trustees had ceased to operate. The trustees were split, they were not meeting. We had no influence on them, we had no control over them. If anybody has any issue with any of the ex-trustees, they should take that up with them directly. I have no control over other people's decisions or what they decide to hold or release.
So you don't have any documents at your possession? Or?
I have no MIA documents in my possession.
Okay,
everything I had was turned over to Alison and to Sasha in 4 or 5 huge boxes. Every single transaction was documented and was turned over so that, because we knew that they had to prepare the annual returns to the auditor.
Now, as I understand, as Mr. McCarthy said earlier, the orders of the court were not specifically to the Al-Bakri group or whoever. The orders were that all property will be handed over to Mr. McCarthy's counsel. Is that correct?
No, sorry, I need to correct that. The actual judgment doesn't speak to handing over any documents. Okay. What the judgment from the court does is reinstate Dr. Warraich as president, Akram Rana as first vice president, and also that, and you'll have to excuse me if I mispronounce the names, Sharif Kidwai, Tag Sufi, Karim Al-Rubai, Sarfaz Christie, and Ashaz Rahim could be reinstated to the MIA Executive Council if they accepted that reinstatement within 7 days of this order, which was on January 27th. If after 7 days, there were 1 or more vacancies on the MIA executive, so if all of those people being reinstated didn't want to be reinstated and didn't want to return to council, then what would happen is that a by-election would have to be called, and that by-election would be held under the supervision of the Court of Queen's Bench and pursuant to the provisions of the general bylaw in the Constitution. Right. So that the orders of the court related to a reinstatement of people to their positions, the court did not specifically speak to handing over documents for specific documents. But in order, as Mr. MacArthur explained, in order for someone to be effectively reinstated and to be able to act as president, then there were certain things that had to be turned over. And it is Mr. Al-Bakri's group's position that all of the things that were in their power and in their control to turn over were turned over at that time.
Except for the website, which was turned over on February 15th, not to Mr. McCarthy's office, which you acknowledged. And the other thing being, as Mr. Al-Bakri is saying, there are other stuff over which he does not have control with. Would you like to clarify if somebody else is withholding that property or information which should be handed over to Mr. Khati's office and thereby going to the president, it is like flouting the court's orders, and that's something that can be an offense? Is that correct or no? Well, it's nothing to laugh about, I guess, you know.
No, it's certainly not a matter. I can tell you what requests were made of the Al-Bakri group and the things that they weren't able to assist with because they weren't in the Al-Bakri group's control. There was a trustee account that the Al-Bakri group never had control over and so could not be of assistance of. There was the computer information, which we said was turned over to Mr. Rahim. The website information also turned over to Mr. Rahim. There was a request made to provide a minute book. It's a corporate, an organizational book for corporations, and the Al-Bakri group never had the minute book, didn't have knowledge of the minute book, and so obviously couldn't be of assistance in either returning it because they never had it, or locating it because they didn't know about it. And then with respect to the master keys, the Al-Bakri group did not have those master keys. It is my understanding that they were held by some former or present trustees, and I myself do not have knowledge of who those particular individuals are. But Mr. Al-Bakri's group didn't have the keys and then so had no keys to give. And then and then obviously if all of the executive positions weren't filled through the reinstatement order, then a by-election was needed to be held.
So your position is all the properties, keys, documents, bank account, bank statements, and
Yes.
so on, that was prior to June 6th election, June 7th election, that was in the position of the Executive Council, and which the Al-Bakri group took position of, has been handed over to your office.
Yes, our position is that, to my knowledge, all of the documents and property in the possession and control of the Al-Bakri group through the time in which they managed the affairs of the organization have been turned over.
Further, Sasha Paul wrote a letter to Mr. Minuk on my instructions, offering that we would be willing to provide any assistance necessary to the MIA in preparing the annual CRA returns, which we have received the response.
So I just want to get this right here. We're arguing essentially over the website control now, because we agree, and Mr. McCarthy said, sorry, I forgot your name. We had said that all the documents and keys and everything were handed over. Whether Dr. Warraich and the Naseer group agree with that or not, you said you sent everything over, and Mr. McCarthy agrees that everything was sent over, except for the control of a website.
Okay, what I agree
Essentially, is what they
when I received what is sent over.
was what they sent over, and to their knowledge, Mr. Naseer group said that is everything that they have control over. And they're saying that we sent everything over. And Dr. Warrachich's position is that no, that's not everything that they've sent over except for a website. So are we seriously sitting here arguing over a website that we don't have control over?
See, like what the Constitution says the President, General Secretary, and the Treasurer is responsible for all the accounts.
Yes.
To send the annual return, you need all the information of MIA account because all these are MIA accounts.
You're right. I understand what you're
So
saying.
we were not given all the accounts. There are some accounts which were, still until recently on the name of me, Abdul Aziz, in the TD Bank, and Salman Quraishi and Markuddin.
You're right.
So I can actually
So
see
they were
But
illegally controlling this money from last 10 years.
Yes,
Now,
Dr. Warraich, that's not correct.
Hold on, wait.
To
So,
the financial
regardless of what he's saying, Mr. McCarthy's position is that, and our position is that we have handed everything over to you guys, Dr. Warrachich's group and Mr. McCarthy. So, MacArthur, sorry, my bad. That they have handed everything over to your group, and so I don't understand what you're arguing about. I mean, they're saying that they sent everything over, you're saying they didn't send anything over. I mean, what's the point here? Now we're arguing over a website?
listen, MIA has two accounts in TD Bank.